Criminal by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips is one of the greatest things I've ever read. Not one of the greatest comic books I've ever read, one of the greatest things I've ever read. Welcome back to the Omnibuds Cafe. My name's Kevin. Grab your cup of coffee and let's check out this book. All right, so here is Criminal Book 1. There are 3 hardcovers in this series, and I'll show them to you here. There's book number 2, book number 3. But for the purposes of showing you the artwork and telling you a little bit about the story, I'm only going to focus on book 1 and allow you guys to dig into the rest. They did a follow-up story a couple years later called Cruel Summer. I got this in trade paperback recently. I'd prefer it in hardcover, but this is what I got. So let's take a look at book 1. So again, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, fantastic artwork. A lot of the characters from the story you'll see are on the cover here. Now, the thing about this story, it reminds me a lot of Pulp Fiction. It's going to jump back and forth from 3, 4, maybe 5 groups of individuals, and they will all kind of throughout time run into each other or give you more context into a previous story. So yeah, it just gives me a lot of Pulp Fiction vibes. But let's dig in and show off some of Phillips' awesome artwork. Now there's really cool extras in here, a lot of artwork and some interviews with Ed Brubaker on kind of his inspiration for this story. And he references a lot of old crime noir movies that I've never heard of and will probably never watch. But throughout this book, I get vibes from a lot of Tarantino vibes. Like I said, Pulp Fiction. I get a lot of Reservoir Dogs when I'm reading this. I see a lot of influence or similarities to 100 Bullets or Sin City and other crime books. But again, Brubaker is the absolute king of this kind of stuff, and let's show it off. So these originally came out in trade paperback form, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 4 stories. So we start off with a character called Leo Patterson. And Leo is just a criminal who's, working for some other guys. And he gets involved in this heist. And it's, classic, the heist that will end all heists. So we get an introduction to him. But this book mainly follows the Lawless family. And later on, we'll get introduced to Teague Lawless, who is the dad. He's a Vietnam War vet who comes home and, doesn't have much going for him. So he gets in with Sebastian Hyde, who's the kind of the crime boss in, I believe this takes place in California in some fake cities or some fictional cities. But we'll meet Teague Lawless, and then eventually you'll meet his son, Tracy Lawless, who is also in the military. And he has to escape a military prison so he can find out what happened to his younger brother, Ricky Lawless. So we'll finish up the first arc here with Leo Patterson, who's got some kind of relationship to the Lawless family, him and his dad. At some point in this next story, we meet Sebastian Hyde, who is, like I said, the head of the crime family. Obviously here, this is kind of where I get my initial vibes of Pulp Fiction. And absolutely gruesome stuff, like really cool artwork, but this is a story about criminals, so not the greatest stuff. So here is Tracy Lawless. And again, he's got to escape a military prison because he hears that something happened to his brother, Ricky. So like I said, you meet the father at some point in this story, but I think you meet the kids first. And at this point, the father is presumed dead. And This story will jump back and forth in time and give you more and more context as you go through the 3 books. Really cool artwork, really awesome covers done by Sean Phillips. The thing I like about Sean Phillips is he doesn't have one art style. Him and Brubaker, it's hard to say, have been working together for many years and have done many stories. And he doesn't have the same art style in every single book. He can vary it up quite a bit. One thing I'm hoping to show you as we kind of randomly scroll through these pages is we meet a character who was at one point friends with Ricky Lawless, and he ends up writing. Here's Sebastian Hyde. Another awesome cover there. It's like a glass ashtray in the shape of a apple or something. We'll try to find some of this, but like I said, a lot of influences that I picked up from other comic book stories. But one of them, there is an arc in here that has a comic book within a comic book. And obviously drawing pretty heavy, kind of a love letter to Watchmen, who had a comic book within a comic book. I don't know, that might be in book 2. I felt like it was in book 1. So then we will cover this character whose name is Jake Brown. He goes by Gnarly. And if you see on the cover, Undertow. So he runs a bar where the criminals kind of gather. And it's called the Undertown. But back in the 60s, the neon on the N went out and no one's fixed it. So it is henceforth called the Undertow. And as we go through multiple different stories, you'll see multiple different criminals rely on the Undertow for a source of information, a source of work, and other. This is, I want this up on my wall. That's absolutely fantastic. And this was actually the cover of the first edition of the hardcover. And that is Teague Lawless. So this is here we jump kind of back in time to see what he was up to and how he got involved in the Sebastian Hyde crime family. This arc is absolutely fantastic, also very sad. Yeah, I guess we're not going to see what I wanted to show you, but I will find a picture and I will put it up here of that comic book within a comic book, which is really cool and is kind of explained late. It happens throughout the story in different arcs and is eventually explained what it is. But again, it just kind of draws me back to Watchmen, kind of that first time I ever saw a comic book within a comic book. And then the extras, there's some cover gallery. They actually did a trailer. So it was like and they describe what that is in here. They released it as a comic book or in the back of another comic book, but it was the first time they ever did a comic book trailer for this story. So it was just pieces of the story, and I think some of this is original, not original to the trailer, and didn't end up in the actual story, but really cool to read through that. Criminal, a startling new crime comic from acclaimed creators, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. So yeah, that is book 1 out of 3, plus we've got more on its way. All right, Omnibuds, let me know down in the comments if you have read Criminal before and what your thoughts of it were, or if you saw this review and thought, I got to check out this story. If you've ever read Ed Brubaker before, he's one of the tops, but the Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips duo is absolutely dynamic. They've got multiple stories together, but I think Criminal is probably the creme de la creme of Brubaker and Phillips. Sometimes you read a story and you can tell that the writer and the artist weren't necessarily on the same page or the communication wasn't very good. But that's never the case with Brubaker and Phillips. They are so in lockstep with each other. This story reads so smoothly. The art is fantastic. Absolutely love it. There's more coming out. We just got word that they've got another story in the Criminal universe I think it's called The Knives. And we've got a show coming out on Amazon Prime sometime this year. So I'm really excited about it. If you want to grab this story, check out panelboundcomics.com. They've got these hardcovers back in stock at a fantastic price. If you like this video or you like any of the videos that we're doing, hit that subscribe button or that like button and leave us a comment, and we'll see you on the next review. Thanks.
Hey, Omnibuds! Be sure to check out the Omnibuds Cafe merchandise store where you can buy mugs, t-shirts, stickers. We're using earnings to buy equipment for YouTube and to fund more giveaways. Who doesn't like giveaways? So click the link in the description and start shopping.